All right, so hi.
Hi,
What is your real name and what do you really do?
my name is Rhonda Swain, and my official title on this team is Compliance Officer. It's on Allison Manukin's leadership team. And I do a lot of different things depending on where the gaps are on the team, but my role has a lot to do with policy
Okay.
and that sort of thing.
So you're a member of the leadership team,
Correct.
and this organization has about how many people in it now?
The whole organization has about 180, I believe, at this point, altogether, with all the teams. It's a pretty self-contained business unit with a marketing team, sales team,
Okay.
fairly large product development team, and then some small ancillary teams.
And you're on a leadership team of 7 or 8 people,
Yes.
right? That runs the
Approximately.
running the whole
is
enterprise.
really pretty much top-down, runs that whole 180-person organization with some input from the corporate level, but we have a lot of autonomy.
Right. So we did sort of a readoption of Agile here, and the basic mechanism was invitation, opt-in participation to the invitation, and then experiments. So this was an invitation to try practices and kind of see how they work, experiment with them.
Right.
And you, as a member of the leadership team, were asked a question one day about whether the leadership team might embark in some of this work, or do the work in a different way. Can you tell me a story about how that started?
Sure. I think we were observing the product development teams going through this process, as you described, sort of relaunching a kind of an agile approach, which had been done but hadn't been greatly successful. So the relaunch took place, and then the leadership team thinking about how can we learn with them, more or less at the same time, and add value. We decided, well, one way to do that would be to experiment by adopting it ourselves and using it in our leadership team activities. We usually had a staff meeting that was weekly, and that was the way we got together and got things done. This was really quite a change in that we said, okay, well, let's try doing, creating a backlog, writing user stories about what we were going to work on over a period of time that was a sprint, and we just, had some debate about what the right length of time was, and then we would have a daily stand-up and try to stick to some fundamental principles of Agile and Scrum as we did that, to see how it felt to us, and if we thought it added, helped us be more effective, communicate better, because a lot of our feedback over the last couple of years had been around decision making being too slow, people not getting the answers from the leadership team that they wanted in a timely way. So this, we thought, had promise in terms of sort of solving a few of those problems, and so we went forward with that. And agreed we would do it for a couple of months as an experiment, and then look at it and see if we thought it was
Useful.
helpful or not.
That's interesting. So you took the same approach as the teams. You did an experiment trying some new practices. You had a daily scrum, you had a backlog, and then you had a demo at a monthly meeting, right?
Yes, that's right. We did, the demo was our monthly all hands, which was an operating mechanism that was already in place, but we decided to kind of change what we did at that monthly meeting and make it a demo of the stories that we completed during the previous month, which was our sprint, our leadership team sprint. And so that was the way we were communicating out how we had done. And then at that meeting, we also communicated what we had decided to work on in the next sprint. So it was both the demo of the results of the prior sprint and a kind of a preview of, okay, here's what we're going to work on. And we tried to be very transparent about making those stories publicly available to the whole organization so that they could at least know what we were working on.
That's interesting. So others this was an all-hands company-wide meeting, others who were in the meeting told me that the primary value to them, which was kind of surprising to me, was not the fact that leadership understood sort of the struggle or challenge of doing things in an agile way. but that the most valuable thing was the visibility they had about the story of the organization into the future,
Okay.
right?
And so they did perceive that visibility.
Oh,
That's
very much
okay.
so. To a person, they each said that that was the primary value for them. Now, for you, you're standing with your leadership team. You're at the all-hands meeting. You're demoing stories that had a weak definition of done, were too big, couldn't be split,
Yes.
couldn't get done. What are you feeling and thinking as you go through this process in front of the whole organization?
Well, I think we felt like, yeah, we're not perfect at this, but we bet you guys aren't either. So it just felt like these are hard-ish problems to solve. And certainly one of the big problems we still struggle with is how do we break down work that is, work that we need to do over the course of a couple quarters or even a year. How do we break that down into these little sprint chunks?
Yeah.
And so we do still struggle with that, but we're pretty transparent about how we don't have all the answers on this, but here's how we thought about it, and here's what we did. And sometimes we didn't finish because we bit off more than we could chew, but that's okay. We rolled it over, and we are working on it again this next sprint. And so I didn't feel like we were embarrassed or had any shame about what we were presenting to the rest of the team. It was just like, this is how the work goes. Sometimes we don't get everything done that we want to get done, and the reasons vary from didn't have the right people on the projects, they were overbooked on the project, we didn't define the work well enough, a whole host of the usual reasons. But I think it helped us think about some of this stuff also, that what were the root cause of our not getting done was actually pretty interesting.
Okay, so the leader, your boss, suggests that we do this as an experiment and that it's subject to amendment after the experiment period is over, and that this isn't set in stone, we're just going to give it a try.
Yeah.
How is that feeling for you as you go into it? Compared to, we're doing this, and if you don't like it, there's a highway over there.
Well, fortunately, I think Allison as a leader is really pretty good at making things, helping us come to a point of feeling like we either agree with the direction we're going, or we agree enough to go forward. And even with, outside of this particular experiment, I think she's very good at creating that sense of, yeah, you might not totally agree with this, but let's give it a shot, and giving us a voice if it's not going well. So I think nobody felt like, if they didn't like it, if it felt like it was going badly, that there was any sanction on being able to be honest about that. But we liked it turns out.
Yeah, but not initially. I remember being there in the early going, and the daily meeting was a little jaggy and felt a little clunky.
Well, it felt a little artificial at first, and I think that was just unfamiliarity. Now, I think we've done two things. One is we aren't very rigid about how we do it,
right.
And we really like the structure of having this check-in,
the feedback
on the work, that every day saying, okay, here's what got done on that story yesterday.
Yeah.
And here's what needs to be done, and here's why nothing's happening, if that's the case. And sometimes that is definitely the case, that we kind of screwed up on that story. We just aren't going to be able to get that done. Or so-and-so who needs to work on it has 3 other things to do, so that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the check-in is really good, I think. And I think we would have pretty good agreement across the board on that. And one thing we've done a whole lot better is we've done much better forward-looking planning, creating some big epics for the future, and kind of building our backlog off those epics. And we map it to our plan on a page, which is a kind of a corporate-wide mechanism that we are able to adapt and kind of map to and that's really helped. I think that's helped our leadership team feel like not only are we doing this little minute day-to-day thing, but it actually maps to some larger, longer-term goals.
It ties
as well.
back to the big picture. Yeah. So you described to me how you attended the 2 open spaces. You didn't spend a lot of time there. You were there at the openings and maybe at the closings. Right. My closing question to you about the interview, we're just about near the end of our time. How has the tone and tempo changed around here as a result of this process of the beginning and after open space events and the experimentation in the middle? Has the tone and tempo around here changed, and if so, how? Is there can you feel a different vibe here? Is it, and if so, what is it?
I think so. I mean, I think slightly different. I mean, there are problems. We haven't solved all our problems.
You haven't?
No. Why not? I don't know. But we haven't. But I do sense that the teams, especially the product development teams, that I interact with somewhat, but I think they feel they've gotten into a really good rhythm, I think, are working really well in this mode, using these Agile methodologies, and I think it makes them feel much more in control of their work and more empowered. Like I say, we haven't solved all the problems of that, but I do sense an improvement, and I definitely sense a difference in the way the leadership team works together. And somebody described it the other day at our retrospective as, that we really have come to that place described in 5 dysfunctions of a team, where you say, what is your team? The team is our team. It's not our functional teams. So I think that
right.
That change has happened since we began to meet more frequently together because of the daily stand-up, and really think about our work across all functions more regularly and more rigorously. I think that's been very valuable.
Mm-hmm. More cohesion in the leadership team.
Much more cohesion in the team, and feeling that we are actually a team. We're not just this kind of loose confederation of functions.
Right.
So I think that's been a big benefit of what we've done.
Awesome. And last question, is there anything that's been a big surprise that you hold as a belief now, or something that's kind of shifted for you since we've done this thing over the past year? Is there any new insight or aha, something that you believe now that maybe you didn't believe then?
I didn't really believe that we could adopt this methodology as kind of, I think, thoroughly as we have across so many teams, with so much, I think overall people like it. I mean, people are happy working this way. It doesn't feel too constraining. And I think I thought it would, and I didn't really know if this could happen in this team. It always has felt like a bunch of people who are way too free-spirited for this kind of
the leadership team?
Rigidity. Not just the leadership team, but the whole organization, everybody. So I think the leadership team, I feel, is a very adaptable bunch. Mm-hmm. I have always thought that. But the leadership team has completely changed. I mean, not completely, but we've had a lot of new people in and out since we even began to do this. So, and people come in and they just kind of go with the flow. So
yeah, because you have a team culture that's pretty well defined now.
Yeah, it's pretty well fixed. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your interview.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.